And the two alumni that we're here to celebrate tonight are, as I mentioned, Jim McKenzie and Dash Shaw, the director and animator and everything else behind My Entire High School Sinking into the Sea. Both of these artists are what I call multi-hyphenates. They make a wide array of different art from different capacities. And so the first alum that I want to bring up here is Jim McKenzie. We're going to be showing the world premiere of his new short film, Noise, before My Entire High School. So I'd like to bring Jim up here right now for a quick Q&A with a current BFA illustration student, Stephanie Kim. They're going to do a quick Q&A, and then Jim will join us after Dash's Q&A, so if you have any questions for him. I just have a quick bio on Jim, who's a world-renowned artist, animator, and director based in Burbank. His vast body of work, you could stay there. His vast body of work ranges from surrealist paintings to stop-motion films and designer toys. And as you saw, the puppet from Makin Things is out in the lobby. Jim is best known for his detailed, character-based sculptures and cinematic art process videos, some of which are also playing in the lobby. Though his whimsical aesthetic is visually vibrant and at times satirical, Mackenzie's characters share underlining themes of distress and melancholia stemming from everyday life. Jim graduated from SVA with a BFA in computer art and visual effects and returned shortly after as a professor, teaching various filmmaking and animation courses. During this time, Mackenzie became a staff director at Aardman Nathan Love, a renowned character-based animation studio in New York. Mackenzie has directed spots for major brands such as Prada, National Geographic, Clash Royale, Capital One, H&R Block, and has recently helped in the creation of Shifa Fan? I didn't get that at all. Oh, Syphaxin, there's an extra X in there. Mascot's character, Gut Guy, who could be seen during Super Bowl 50. Currently, Jim is exhibiting his artwork in numerous galleries across America and around the world. Let's bring on Jim and Stephanie.
As an SVA alumni, could you tell us a little bit what your time at SVA was like?
It was very long. That's about it. No, it was great. I was at the computer art department from 2007 to I think 2011, and just being in that department, they really just drive you to just do the best work you could possibly do. And I remember like the last 2 years being there, sleeping on the floors, just staying at the office or at the labs for days on end, just trying to finish like thesis projects and stuff. And the faculty there were working professionals, so not only are they teaching you, but they're also helping you get your first jobs. So, yeah.
Well, what did you do for thesis?
I did a computer animation, stop motion, 2D film called King Killian, and it's weird because I remember when you're making your student films, you're so proud about them, and then the teachers are like, don't get too proud because in 2 years you're going to look at it and say this is terrible. And I think it's been probably about 8 years since I've done that, and I understand what they're talking about. So
I thought for a minute you were about to say that you're still proud of it.
Oh, no, definitely not.
So what did you do since then? Like, what did you work right after graduation?
Yeah, well, I was working with some of my teachers during school, and I think I guess I graduated on a Thursday, and then that following morning, I started working at Aardman Nathan Love, which was actually Nathan Love at the time, just doing concept art, stuff like that, matte paintings for 3D, it was like a Hawaiian Punch commercial. And at that time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do or what I was actually focusing on. Like I knew where my tastes lie and where my interests were, but I didn't know like what my capabilities were fully. So I just started off doing concept art and stuff like that, and then that kind of led into more animation, which led into directing, which led into that weird clip that you guys just saw, and now I'm here. So.
All right. Well, could you tell us a little bit of what we're premiering tonight?
Yes, we are premiering a short film of mine called Noise, and that is a film that I made about almost 2 years ago, and it's a personal project that, what's that? I don't know, I thought I heard something. I showed it to about 3 or 4 people when I first made it, and it was just one of those things where you make for yourself just to get the feelings out, and I didn't really intend to show it to the public. So it kind of sat on my hard drives for I guess, a year. And I heard about this. I showed Adam like all these films. We wound up going with premiering Noise here. So I went back, I revisited it, and fixed the music and just kind of bumped it up a little bit. And now we're going to premiere that today. But it's pretty much just, it's very different from what you just saw with Making Things. That is something more on the crazy satirical side of everything. And normally what I do is just theatrical process videos. So Making Things was a total leap away from all of that, just to kind of say, like, the hell with all this, I'm just going to do something ridiculous. Because we were going to make a feature-length film about one of my characters called the Scarecrow, and we spent months coming up with a script, and everybody wanted to see the Scarecrow movie. It was going to be this big stop-motion thing, and then it went nowhere. We couldn't write anything that just felt real, so we made Making Things as like a, F you to all of that. So now, aside from that, to go on the complete opposite spectrum, this piece that I'm about to show is like super personal. It's much darker, but I think the moral of it is that you could get through negative thoughts, negative thinking by diving straight into it, and just coming out the other end, and that's about it. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. We're really excited.
I hope you liked it.
Dash wanted to come up and give a quick intro to the film before you guys see the feature. So let's bring up Dash Shaw.
Well, thanks so much for showing up and having me. And this is really nice to be back at the SVA Theater to show this movie. Kind of like what Jim was saying is I spent a long time trying to make a movie in a normal way, and meaning I would like get a cast attached and get financing and do it, and that never happened. I never really thought it would happen to begin with. So this movie started off just drawing in my kitchen, and Jane Samborski, the lead animator, she was actually trained as an animator. I was a comic book artist. And I picked this story because it felt the most doable of all the story ideas I had, that the original comic was kind of a parody of teen autobio comics that were really popular in the 90s when I was growing up and wanting to be a cartoonist. And those kind of boys' adventure comics of the 90s. And the way it looked, the way it was made in this kind of DIY or independent spirit kind of meshed with the story. And then as we worked on it more and more, and it kind of grew to what you see, but it still stays feeling in the mode of the I don't know, the spirit of DLC. Okay. Yeah, thanks so much.
And I want to bring Stephanie back up to the stage to moderate our Q&A with Dash, and then Jim will join us for the audience Q&A. Dash Shaw is the cartoonist of many graphic novels, including Doctors, Bottomless Belly Button, Body World, New School, and Cosplayers. He directed a music video for Sigur Rós and animated sections for documentaries and TV, including for the second season of 13 Reasons Why on Netflix. His comic short stories recently appeared in the Fantagraphics anthology series Now. My Entire High School premiered at the 2016 New York Film Festival and Toronto International Film Festival. It has played film festivals throughout the world and had a U.S. theatrical release in 2017. It's currently available on Netflix streaming in North America and was one of Amy Taubin's best films of the year on Art Forum. Please welcome Dash and Stephanie.
What did you think of the movie?
I hated it. I'm just kidding. It was amazing. It was really good. I was not expecting it to be that in-depth. Like the amount of work that went into that, it's just, I can't even imagine doing that. Yeah, it was like
thrilling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like the mixed media element of it. Mm-hmm. I think it really added an element, like an ambiance.
Yeah. I could pretend like I made it, and then we could just
go
from there.
So, I mean, who did you base your characters off of? I mean, are they people you've known or people you've done?
Oh, yeah, you know. Wait, are we really doing that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Hi.
I will switch for now.
Sure.
And give it to the actual director.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's been great.
So before I want to ask you questions about the movie, I wanted to ask you about what your experience at SVA was like as a student.
Let's plug SVA, I guess.
Yeah.
It was really great. You know, James McMullen's figure drawing class, and my experience when I graduated high school in 2001. So then the only place, and I only wanted to be a comic book artist ever since I was a little kid. It was always my dream, and like an alternative comic book artist. And when I graduated, there was like, at that time, it was SVA, SCAD, or like the...
Pratt?
They didn't have a cartooning major there. And there was like the Kubert School of Cartooning, you know? So now there are so many more cartooning majors in colleges. So SVA was the only school I applied to. And if I didn't get in, I was just gonna try to draw comics and not have a college degree, because SVA had this great history with Bern Hogarth and great cartooning teachers, and I was just like all in. And then I moved up from Richmond, Virginia, to New York, and I, you know, a week into moving into my dorms was 9/11. And everyone left, and school was canceled for a while, and there was a tank in front of the GW dorms. And I remember, and people were like, well, you should leave. Everyone was leaving the city. And I thought, no, I'll just stay. I just got here. So the first time I was in Times Square, it was completely empty because everyone had left. They were freaked out, especially about like the majors.
What was that like?
It was totally, I mean, in retrospect, it was really crazy. It was like the beginning of the movie Vanilla Sky, you know?
Oh, okay.
And I had a lot of like weird nightmare nightmares about 9/11, but SVA was great. Well, you know, I was thinking about it because today, and then also when this movie premiered in Toronto, TIFF, it was 2016, and it premiered on September 11th. On Sunday, and I thought, why did they screen? Why did they?
And we're here today on September 11th.
Yeah, and I thought, like, why did they choose it for the premiere? Like, the first image in the movie is all these people screaming and falling.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, I should just be really happy that they even would show the movie at all. So now it's here 2 years later, and they're screening it again. So it's, you know.
Well, that's crazy.
Thank you for screening it.
That How do you feel now that everything what you were hoping for growing up is actualized? Like, you have a feature film, you're published.
Yeah, well, I hate to break it to you, but when you get those things, you realize that it doesn't make you happy.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah. True.
Sorry to burst that bubble.
Well.
But I'm very thankful for it all, but, you know.
Okay.
You heard it here first, I guess.
I mean, I believe it. I mean, people who win the lottery like don't end up like super happy. But anyways, I was mentioning earlier that I really liked the mixed media element of your animation.
Oh yeah.
So I was wondering if you could tell us a little about the creative process of like how you make your decisions, your artistic decisions.
Well, I always, you know. Animation and comics were really connected growing up because it was in the 90s, and it was the Japanese animation explosion in the United States, and every time I would go to Blockbuster, there would be more VHSs of anime.
Yeah.
And I would go to Otakon and all of that stuff. So I always loved animation, but I thought there was just a particular kind of animation that I call limited animation. Some people call low-budget animation, but limiting the number of drawings, you know. And when I moved to SVA, I worked at the SVA Film Library that I encourage you all to go to. And so it was my job to get prints for like Amy Taubin's class and stuff like that. And so there I got kind of an education in experimental film or independent film, and I immediately saw a connection between, you know, that like Godard and like Speed Racer, where it's like the power is in using, turning the limited means into an advantage, where you don't want Godard to have $1 million and he can just take a camera and follow someone dancing in a spare room, and it has all of the like existential power of 2001. And similarly with those like Speed Racer, there's like a poetic kind of quality to the limited movement, and almost like an experimental theater quality where people are very stiff or not. The expression is coming from the voice, but they're not performing.
Yeah.
And even the voice, I don't know. I had like a very particular zone of cartoon that I really wanted to participate in, and I thought so it was not like a goal to work for Cartoon Network or something. It was always like, how can I just try to make
Something cool.
something that continues this lineage, and how do I do it in like kind of a American indie comic kind of way that's like snarky and has like the attitude of a lot of those independent comics that I liked growing up. So then the mixed media, it's like just hopefully everything that's in it are things that are inside of that limited language. Like even the liquid light effects, like that's something you would see in old cartoons, Ralph Bakshi cartoons, and even that feels related to, because it's like those insane beautiful like forms are just like a drop of ink, like as big as your fingernail, into like a little dish, and it's being blown up. And so that to me is like independent cinema, or like it's like, how can you just make like a dot for an eye be moving, or how can just looking at a dot be engaging, or can scanning a Q-tip be kind of startling, or like how do you take like the smallest thing and make it, seem like a blockbuster movie effect? That was the fun of it, or the mission.
There's a humorous element to it. I always like when like cartoons flip to like super detailed when they're not. I don't know, like there are like some scenes in like SpongeBob where they show a real sponge, and it's kind of funny.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah.
But so you're also a comic artist. You've published books. So I'm wondering, how do you decide when you were coming up with a story, if you're going to animate it, or if you want to put it in a book form?
Well, this one started off as a very short comic story that was just a parody of kind of autobio comics, which were like really the majority of alternative comics in the 90s were autobio, and they were very like mundane and kind of and crossing it with Titanic, the movie Titanic, so it's like the fantasy of this person. And so I turned to it because I thought, I had tried writing other animated scripts, and I would show them to people, and it would always seem like too complicated, or this one, it was like, it's a video game progression.
Yeah.
And even when I watch it now, well, what's weird, like I said in the intro, it kind of like expanded as we were working on it. We only got the cast when we had 80% of the movie drawn already. Yeah. So we were then taking the voices and kind of putting it into the drawings. And if I had known that I was going to get that cast, I would have tried to write meteor roles for everybody. Or just, I don't know, I would have probably done some, but if some like person traveled from the future and told me that I would get a great cast, I just wouldn't have believed them anyway. So, when I watch it now, I'm like, oh, it's too simple. There could have been more. I could have done more in the narrative, but also I was trying. Even earlier cuts of this movie, we would do very small screenings, and people would be like, we have no idea what's going on,
Yeah.
And I didn't major in film. I drew comics, and I went to the Sundance Labs, and I had some experience, but I wasn't. Now I have. I don't know. I learned a lot making this. Is what I'm saying.
I mean, how long would you say from start to finish this movie take you?
I mean, I wrote the script in 2010.
Okay.
So then it premiered 2016. But I was doing other things.
Okay.
And but it was always like a side project until maybe 2014 or 2015 until it was like, oh, let's get it.
It's
get
something
this
you
together.
put down, pick up, put down, pick up.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I think I was basically like, I think I could make an animated movie. Like you can scan it,
Yeah.
I didn't, yeah. It was kinda
So,
sad.
I mean, were you drawing comics first and then went into animation, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought it would. Like I said, I like that kind of limited animation, but it just seemed like impossible. Like the CG animation that I saw, the kind of Flash stuff that was coming out around when I graduated, I don't mean to knock it, but it wasn't. It didn't make me want to like pick up a computer. Like I was like, it doesn't look right to me.
Yeah.
I wanted like it basically like look like it was made in 1970s Devilman is like the pinnacle for me. Like that Devilman television series that Go Nagai did in like 1970. So, but then I started making GIFs in Photoshop, around 2005. And I thought, oh, you can just scan it. It doesn't have to look computery. You can just take a drawing and scan it, and it can be traditional animation. It's just composited on Photoshop, and use the scanner basically like how Disney would use a multiplane camera.
Right.
So then when I figured that out, that was exciting, and I would make short animations and put them on YouTube. And then, amazingly, I got a gig for IFC doing a series between. That would run between movies on the IFC channel, which again, I was young when I think I was pretty, well, how old was I? I was 25. And at the time I came in, I had a meeting with IFC and I was like, I can make a limited animation thing, traditional animation. I didn't know how to do any sound stuff. So I was like, it won't have any dialogue. It'll just have text on the screen for when people are talking. And in retrospect, it's one of those things where you're like, I can't believe they said yes. And that they paid me to do these things. There were no notes.
That's awesome.
There were no notes. And they paid me,
They just
and it
gave
ran.
you free reign?
Yeah, but immediately they destroyed that whole division at IFC.
Oh, no.
It was like me and one of the Mumblecore guys, Joe Swanberg, had a series there. So yeah, they obliterated that whole. So apparently they weren't doing anything right to say yes to me. But amazingly, later I was like, geez, I can't believe that they would give me that gig, and I just like.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, it hasn't happened since then. That someone would just like make experimental animation. Here's some money. Like, go do it. No notes. We'll run it on TV. It's crazy.
Well, I just got a signal for one more question.
Oh.
Before we, ask the audience for questions. What's next? What do you have on the table right now?
I'm a movie called Crypto Zoo, about a zoo that rescues and houses mythological creatures.
What?
And it's like a painted movie. It's still.
It's gonna be like similar aesthetic, like.
Well, this one has like when people are moving, the lines wobble. It's kind of the thick wobble, and that's so much of it. And I like it in like a psychedelic kind of or like like harsh way. But the next one, if something is still, it doesn't. No wobbly lines.
Okay.
But the idea is fewer drawings, but the drawings are better. Like this movie is a lot of sort of shitty drawings that kind of combine to do it.
I like that though. But
So the next one is fewer, better.
okay.
Like precision
So
strikes at you, the audience.
when should we be expecting this, or like?
I'm aiming for 20 years from now. No, I'm just kidding. No, I really hope. I don't know, a couple years.
Okay. Well,
I say that,
see.
because they take a long time.
Okay.
All right, now let's bring Jim back up to the stage, and we're going to open this up for questions for both Jim and Dash. And we'll run the mics to you. So, Vin, you have one in the middle right there.
Welcome back, Jim.
Okay. Hi. So I have a question for Dash. So talking about like, you said like, kind of like the mix of like shitty drawings and like, the drops of coloring and stuff like that. I guess like how much of the movie was like very intentionally created, and how much of it was like kind of happy accidents of like playing around with ideas and different types of creation.
Well, the thing, as I'm sure you know from if you're animation students, is not very much happens by accident. It's pretty, everything, it's nice when an animated movie feels like it has a weird energy, like the Ralph Bakshi movies in my mind are like the greatest for that. But it's very hard to have things improvised because it's storyboarded and you're executing the storyboards, and when it comes together, there's a surprise. A little, mainly the surprise was with the voice acting, honestly, because I didn't have any idea of the cast. I had no idea. I was just gonna get like some friends to do it, and so then the cast added this whole other element that was a delightful surprise to the movie. But fire, like at the beginning I knew, fire would have to be real fire because I had seen that in cartoons. I always liked it. The chaos of that room would have to be kind of that party glitter, and the underwater stuff has to be liquid light show. I don't, some days you're, also, as I'm sure you all know as drawers, some days your pen is doing something differently than the other days, and you don't know why, and so there's that slight element of surprise. Like there's a scene with Lunch Lady Lorraine talking to the Dash character, and her face is really brushy, and I really liked how that one turned out. And I don't know, I think it was just that day that I was drawing it that the pen was a little different or brushy, and I wish and then other scenes that didn't have that at all. I was like, why can't? But not a lot of yeah.
Anybody else? A question?
For Ash, hi. How did you get that cast? Because it was pretty significant people.
Well, so I had gone to the Sundance Labs in 2010 on a different movie I was trying to make. And Lena Dunham was there working on her before Tiny Furniture came out. And so I was friendly with her. I really liked her. And then years before that, I had met Jason Schwartzman through comics. And John Cameron Mitchell, I had done the drawings for the movie Rabbit Hole, and a Sigur Rós video that he wrote and I directed and drew. But that doesn't mean that I thought that anyone would say that. Well, anyway, I didn't. I had their email addresses. And then when I had a lot of it drawn, I thought, I need to start working on the sound. I kind of grouped actors under sound. All of the sound material I didn't know how to do. And I had met these two guys who also at the Sundance Labs who had made. They lived. This was when I lived in Bed-Stuy, and like around 2011 or something, and. Kyle Martin had done a movie. He had produced Tiny Furniture, and this other guy, Craig Zobel, had done a great movie called Compliance, and they lived in my neighborhood. And so I said, I need some help, getting a cast together. And they immediately suggested Jason Schwartzman, and I said, well, I know him. I have his email, and we'll. It's kind of embarrassing to write an email, like, will you be in my movie, kind of email, but. Amazingly, everyone we wrote said yes, which was really shocking. And I could show them a lot of the movie. I sent them a Vimeo of a section of the movie. But
Have they seen it and like given you any feedback?
Did they give feedback to it?
Yeah, like did they see it? And,
They just said, yeah. That was all the feedback, I needed. Count me in. And then once we had a handful of those people, then we could go to people I didn't know, like Susan Sarandon, and be like, we've got all these people attached. This is what the movie is. The ball is rolling on this thing. It was really surprising, and I don't know, kind of, now I don't, it's a wonderful surprise.
Yeah, how you doing? So this film is kind of dark. Like, what was the inspiration to make you go down that road?
And that was for Jim.
It was never really meant to be seen by people. It was just one of those things, like, artists, people that draw a lot will draw things for their personal collection. Painters, photographers will take photos that they'll just make for themselves. So that was just a little tiny short film, one of many that I just wanted to, or just made for myself, just to get through a small portion of time. And so I wasn't really intending to show that to anyone. But I would say that, what I do normally is shoot a lot of the process films of my sculptures and stuff like that, and they're very theatrical and stuff. So when I was shooting this, I wasn't really intending it to actually even be an edit. I just shoot things whenever I start making something, and maybe about 60% of the time I'll actually edit it together and put it in, online or something. But this one was all just B-roll footage that I just kind of stitched together into some narrative, in the process of making it. So it wasn't really planned out, and a lot of the effects and stuff were added on later. Not much that really went into it besides just, gut feelings and stuff like that.
Your question back. Oh.
I got a question for Dash. I'm back here, straight in the back. Hey, man. Your film starts with a seizure warning, and I'm just wondering if that had to be put in later.
No. What's well, somewhere in the middle of working on it, it kind of came up like, oh, should the strobing? There's so much strobing in the movie, and I, so then I don't know if it was my idea, but maybe it was someone else's idea to maybe put a warning, and I immediately loved the idea, and because it reminded me of the Pokemon cartoon that gave people seizures. And so other people thought it would be a bad idea, but I was like, no. And then my friend Mickey Duge, who I think teaches at SVA now, he did all of the hand lettering in the movie. And so I asked him to write warning. He wrote this incredible, beautiful warning sign. And so I was like, it has to be in the movie now. We have this great signage at the start, and I liked that like this movie is gonna hurt you, like kind of starting off, or it might hurt you, and you really, it's not something to do again, but you really feel it in the audience. I've gotten to see it play in so many different places when I did all these festivals, and you would feel it in the audience. People. Because most movies, they spend so much time, like, how do we get the first 5 minutes to really keep people here? And here, the first thing you feel is people thinking, like, I don't know if I have a, like, should I leave? Is the first kind of wave of feeling from the back of people's heads, like shooting into you as you sit in the back of the audience. I don't know. That's it. So I fought for it. There wasn't the policeman telling us to do it.
Oh. There's no incidences of people.
No. Probably way more incidents. I did hear a couple of people left near the end of a press screening.
you know.
So I have a question. So when is it going to be out for release for other people to see? You know, just not just us, but the whole world.
It played in festivals in 2016, and then it had a theatrical release in 2017. It played at Metrograph
And it's on
for
Netflix
2 weeks,
now.
and it's on Netflix and DVD and Blu-ray.
Also Netflix.
Thank you. I planted him here as a plug.
Yes,
Is he
yes.
hired by Netflix?
Yes, sir.
It's available. Tell your friends.
Any other? I actually have one question for both of you, since you both do so many different things in terms of art. From Jim, you sculpt, you draw, you're now a filmmaker. Dash, same thing for you. Is there one thing that you really feel most at home doing, or most comfortable, or most fun, and so, or do you just love doing it all in one thing?
I think all of it, probably. But there are things, there's days where like I'll much rather prefer sculpting something, or sit and just draw for like a few hours, or and then there'll be a week where I'll just sit at like Starbucks and I'll just edit in the corner for like 6 hours a day. People will just give me weird looks, and like it varies each week by week, day by day. But I think that's it's nice that I have that. I could just kind of jump over here and here, so that way it never really gets boring. I'll sculpt one day and then paint the other day. But all of it's great.
Comics is so like soul rewarding to just be the only person, and it's so wonderful, and you kind of see the stack of pages mount, and you feel like every day if you get like finish a page or something gives you a rush. Well, the movies, this one and the one I'm working on now, they take so long. It feels like you're just making drops into a bucket, but it's great to have an excuse to interact with other people, which the movies do. Get to try to ask people for money, stuff like that. That cartoonists do in other ways, but I don't, more social interaction, which I think was really healthy for me, especially, I don't know, it's good.
I have a couple questions. So Jim, to start off, they're both detail questions. So I wanted to ask you about the end of Noise with the ember burning on the candle. How do you get the idea to put in like a narrative with that? So you had the face and the kind of broken heart seemed like a loss.
Oh yeah, that I was hoping to just leave that to interpretation, like the actual meaning to that. But again, that was just strictly B-roll that I was shooting, because I just kept going back, because I always have a candle burning whenever I'm working, and just to kind of come full circle, I blew it out. And then as I was deciding to edit it together into a film, I just kind of kept that going, and I figured I'd kind of use that to bookend the actual film, and I thought it could kind of be sort of just one of those things that leaves you questioning what is actually going on at the end. And then it burnt out in like a strange way, and there were visual effects added to it where it kind of flickered and stuff like that. But I like the take, and then from looking at that take, I just kind of kept it in there, and it was all just kind of thrown together in a weird way, and then it was one of those things where it doesn't really make sense to even me. And then once I looked at it, I was like, okay, it does make sense. So, yeah.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And Dash, I wanted to ask you, so from potentially painful beginnings with the strobe warning, how do you get to the pleasurable experience of a Q-tip? Like, why do you choose a Q-tip as the symbol for like what everybody loves in the movie?
Well, I thought it would be nice to, I can give you an answer and you can decide if it's adequate. At first it was just in the script as words, and so then I'm trying to I thought it would be nice to have a small objects blown up big on screen, and then a Q-tip is a shape that I thought would be nice on a widest screen. And then it's basically a silhouette. So then I thought maybe your eye would take a second to figure out that it's a real thing and not just a shape, you know? That's it. I'm very, very early on, you have to choose your aspect ratio, you know, because everything's based on that. And I knew that this kind of animation would be associated with television. But I wanted it to feel like a movie. So I picked like the widest possible aspect ratio, like the Westerns. And yeah.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question.
I think I saw something
right
over
there.
Oh, there's someone with their hand up there.
All right, we'll do that one last. And before I totally forgot to tell this at the beginning, but if you asked a question, we have DVDs of Dash's film as well as posters. Which would you want to sign, Dash?
Sure.
All right, so we have, for those of you who asked a question, or if you're under the age of 13, I'm looking at
It's
this.
a PG-13 movie.
This row.
That's illegal.
I'm looking at this row right here. You can grab one of these. Come to the stage after, and you can grab one of these. So we have those two more questions, one right there, and then we'll take the one in the back.
Hi, this is for Jim. Because noise wasn't really supposed to be seen by anybody else, what made you decide to okay letting that come out?
Well, I'm definitely not in that headspace at the moment. And I mean, it's just one of those like negative thought pieces where, you know, negative thoughts are kind of like waves. They come and they go. And I think the best way, if you want to dive through a wave, is not pretend that it's not going to hit you and try to jump over it, but dive straight through it, and you'll be all right. But they're always coming in, and you can never, fully get out of remission. So I think right now is a good time where a lot of good things are happening, and I'm just not that afraid of it anymore. And there's so many different, pieces that I've made that I've just refused to show, and probably never will. But also that aligned with this film festival happening, and just thought it would be the right time to do it. And I think maybe by showing that, it kind of makes me get over that even more, because I only showed it to like 3 people, so like I was a little scared to come here today just to do that, like to show it to like more than 4 people. So it wasn't that bad, so I feel better.
Thank you for sharing it.
Thanks.
Right in front of Waylon.
Hi, this is directed to both of you. What do you feel was the biggest obstacle in your films, and what you learned the most from with that?
Probably myself. Where want to go?
I guess the journey of making it. Yeah.
I mean, I would say myself. You always kind of stand in your own way. I feel like the end of the finish line is always in your sight, and it just comes down to you with whether or not you're gonna choose to run the race or not. But again, I mean, my film was a little shorter than his film, but
I was gonna say the same thing. That Jim is my biggest obstacle.
Yes. You'll never finish.
No, that's true. Self-sabotage, maybe. Fear of success and fear of failure. Yeah.
Fear. So have no fear. Well, let's thank Jim, Dash, and Stephanie for a lovely evening. If you want.